very steep uphill climb to get there. And Jolly has to overcome, this voter registration disadvantage and this financial disadvantage.
And there's a challenge for the Democrats when it comes to the U.S. Senate race as well. Ashley Moody replaced Marco Rubio when he became Secretary of State. She's the incumbent. She's running on the Republican side. And Angie Nixon won tonight, which was a surprise to some folks over Vindman, who was a hero of the resistance, Alex Vindman. Angie Nixon winning pretty handily there, 56-44. She is a member of the Democrats Socialists of America. But is the DSA sort of DOA in a statewide race where President Trump won the state by 13 points back in 2024?
Right. Her win, I think, was the big story of the night out of Florida politics. The governor's race, we sort of expected what would happen. But in her case, Vindman had sort of been the darling of the Democratic establishment. He had raised over $16 million, whereas Angie Nixon had under $1 million. And, she pulled off this win tonight by a huge margin, by, almost 12 points. After, many of the other Democrats have been condemning democratic socialism, two different venues in South Florida, canceled her event with Rashida Tlaib over the weekend. So she had faced a lot of pushback, but she pulled out this win, by pitching a very progressive message and a Florida-focused message. She's a longtime progressive organizer in Florida and was pitching, Medicare for all, free childcare, whereas, Vindman was coming in as sort of someone who had worked in DC and who had a lot of money and who the sort of national establishment saw as the kind of candidate that could win Florida. But, this was an upset win that she pulled off tonight. And she did join the Democratic Socialists of America recently. They didn't formally endorse her in the primary, but she is part of that party. And it's a good question how that's going to translate to voters across the rest of Florida outside the Democratic primary in November.
And a very different message from David Jolly as well. So that'll be interesting to watch. Claire Heddle starting us off in Orlando, Florida. Thanks so much for your reporting.
Thank you, Alex.
Let's bring in our panel now. Ron Brownstein is a CNN senior political analyst and opinion columnist with Bloomberg. Democrat Katie Porter served in the U.S. House and ran for governor and Senate here in California. And Matt Klink is a Republican strategist as well as the owner and president of Klink Campaigns. You've all been with us the last 2 Tuesdays. It's gone so well. We saw it 3 times the charm.
Back for more.
And Ron, let's start off with you. Big takeaway of the night.
Look, I think it continues the story we've talked about the last 2 weeks and all year, the divide in the Democratic Party. Centrists had some big wins in the House races, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Moskowitz, but the biggest win of the night went to the left. Angie, her win, I think it was always uphill in Florida for Democrats. It's more uphill now, but I think the Vindman strategy was an extreme version of what we have seen from other Democratic centrists this year. He literally did not debate her. And I think what we've seen in other states is Democratic centrists have chosen not really to challenge the left candidates on the substance of their ideas, more to make the argument they're not electable or they can't be passed. That is a failing strategy. I think it is very clear tonight.
Biggest takeaway from tonight.
I didn't think Democrats were likely to win either of these races. I don't think David Jolly, regardless of the fact that he used to be a Republican, now he's a Democrat, I just don't think Democrats are going to be able to take Florida in these 2 races regardless. The registration advantage is big. It's been trending the wrong way. So to the extent that Democrats have limited resources, both in terms of energy and focus and dollars, maybe this is a gift to send them focusing elsewhere, as Ron suggested earlier.
Meaning you weren't going to win the race anyway, so now you were not going to spend the money there and spend it in Texas
Democrats
or
are famous
Ohio
for doing this. Look at all the money that was plowed in a few years ago into trying to beat Marjorie Taylor Greene in a district that was R plus like 7,000.
Remember the money to defeat Mitch McConnell?
2020.
Amy McGrath.
And South Carolina.
And so, I am excited to see Democrats competing in Florida, having a primary in Florida. It's good for the Florida Democratic Party to do that. But I think we're a ways from being able to take these seats back. And I think Byron Donalds, I served with him. I think he is a formidable candidate. I don't agree with his policies, but I think he's very, very skillful, and I think he'll be tough to beat no matter who Democrats were to put up.
Big takeaway.
Byron Donalds, I think that he did what he needed to do tonight. He ran a good campaign, a strong campaign. The press is trying to make hay of, the governor didn't endorse him. Well, he was also running against DeSantis's appointed lieutenant governor. So I think that endorsement's going to come soon. And
he's not going to endorse David Jolly.
No, absolutely
No, that's
not.
not happening.
And if the Democrats could stop nominating former Republicans to run for governor in Florida, they had Charlie Crist before, now David Jolly, by the way, who was pro-abortion and pro-gun, or pro-life and pro-gun. Now he's a woke Democrat. He's going to get slaughtered.
And it's hard to reconcile a David Jolly with an Angie Nixon.
Yeah.
So,
right. Well,
let's love to see that.
And it's interesting because to that point, and let's play some sound from tonight.
Yep.
Both of them talked tonight about that. Jolly was on MS Now and was asked about this idea of the DSA, and Angie Nixon was on with Laura Coates in the last hour here on CNN. Let's play both of their sound bites back to back.
Is this a state, Florida, that can elect you as governor, but also elect progressive Angie Nixon for the U.S. Senate at the same time?
Well, we're going to find out. We're going to find out. Look, I reject the DSA. I reject socialism. I'm a capitalist, and I think capitalism provides the greatest amount of economic mobility. I have been with Angie on the trail, and I'll tell you this, she's a fighter.
It's not about I'm a single mom. I was a single mom for 12 years. I'm a mother now. I'm an organizer. I'm a community organizer. But more importantly, it's about the needs of the people. And what people need is they need housing, right? They need universal health care. They want universal child care.
So she was asked about the socialism word, and she says it's not about labels. It wasn't exactly a full-throated endorsement of the
Which is what
DSA.
Democratic socialists say to soften the blow of the term socialist in a state with a lot of communist refugees from Cuba.
I will say, she went into policy answers, and I think that's exactly where Democrats are falling short. So going to housing, talking about child care, talking about Medicare for all. David Jolly, why would a Democrat be enthusiastic about that? To your point, not only am I not sure he shares some of my core values as a Democrat, I'm not sure he gets what my problems are in life, like economically, in terms of what I need. Housing, jobs for my kids, retirement, healthcare. Where is he at on this?
If you're in the center of the Democratic Party, you have to be worried about the way this primary season is ending and what it means for 2028, because it has been a pretty close fight all the way through. But as we talked about, the left is finishing strong. El Sayed in Michigan, Peggy Flanagan in Minnesota, this year. And I do think that by and large, the center candidates, even here in California with Becerra, have chosen not really to engage the left on the substance of their agenda.
That's an understatement.
Right.
He's chosen not to engage on anything at all.
And look, he clearly had doubts about Medicare for all, but he would not raise that in those debates. He just kind of avoid the question. Haley Stevens, their campaign felt that talking about health care at all was an El Sayed's turf. And Virginia is choosing not to debate at all. And this is very similar to Hillary Clinton did in 2016 and 20 when she basically would not engage the substance of ideas because she was afraid of alienating his voters, and instead said, well, you can't pass them or you can't get elected promoting them. That is a really defeatist message, I think, for a lot of Democrats. And so the lack of that debate, I think, is a real lesson for centrists coming out of this.
Can I push back on the centrist thing, though? Because we do see centrist success in North Carolina with Roy Cooper. We see it with John Ossoff in Georgia. We see it James Talarico. We see it in Iowa.
And
there are plenty of examples.
As I said, neither side has had a knockout in these primaries. Turek in Iowa, Becerra here. Each side is winning its share of races. But I think in many of these closely contested races that progressives have won, the center has not had the courage of their convictions. They have not been willing to engage.
The courage of their convictions. Right. I still am struggling with what the convictions are.
That's the point. It's like, Alex, you just said it, though. Ron is saying that you see the energy from the left, and the centrist candidates that you talked about, they have that energy. It's people want elected officials to do something, not just point a finger and say Donald Trump is bad. And right now, the majority of the people on the left that are talking about doing things, they're crazy things, are the Democratic Socialists, and the moderates that are doing it are getting publicity from it.
Yeah.
That's probably something that my Democratic colleagues should pay attention to. And maybe Javier Becerra as well, who's been hiding since he won the primary.
But to his credit, Javier Becerra, when you're ahead by 25 points, maybe hiding is a good thing.
But voters deserve to see who you are.
Well, we would love to host a debate here on CNN. I'll put that plug in right now, which I've said publicly and privately. All right, we're going to have a lot more to discuss with the panel, including very interesting comments from Darlene Graham tonight that's getting a lot of attention. I'm really fascinated to hear what you all have to say. Also, we're going to have a lot more from around the country. Stay with us. You're watching Election Night in America right here on CNN.
The conversations between the U.S. government and different areas of the Iranian government at all areas is probably more robust than it's maybe ever been. And so there's been a lot of good dialogues, which I think is very, very helpful.
President Trump's approval rating is at the lowest level of his presidency, and Reuters Ipsos poll finds just 33% of Americans approve of his job performance. That's down 2 points from earlier this month and ties with his lowest rating during his first term. Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff has been going after President Trump over the war with Iran, rising costs and corruption. For months now, Ossoff has stuck to a clear playbook, holding campaign rallies where he criticizes his Republican opponent, Mike Collins, and President Trump. Here's what Ossoff had to say about the president's treatment of Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, who's had his own disputes with the White House.
I don't think anything illustrates the times more aptly than that the draft-dodging crook president who has plunged our nation recklessly into a war he knows not how to end or to win, tried to imprison this man who embodies American heroism.
Let's bring back in our panel, Ron Brownstein, Katie Porter, and Matt Klink. We will talk about Ossoff and his future in a moment. But first, I want to talk about Darlene Graham, who is the new senator from South Carolina after her brother Lindsey Graham died. She had no political experience before. Last week, she officially made it to the runoff, which is next week. You suggested that she may make some mistakes during that process. You suggested that she was going to win, and you suggested that she was going to lose. So here's what happened tonight. She's on a debate stage. You haven't seen this yet, so we're going to get your reaction to it. Roll the clip.
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States, and if so, why or how?
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security, but I do support the military. My brother was in the Air Force for 33 years, so I will do everything I can to support the military. My dad was in the Army. I'm not a polished politician up here. National security is not my thing, not my area of expertise, but I do support the military.
First reaction?
This was my first day back in the classroom, and I just thank the good Lord that my students had better answers than that. That was truly terrible. I mean, I think what I said last week was this woman needs a lot of polish, and she needs it really fast. Republicans were not fast enough putting it on her.
Yeah. I mean, put yourself in the position that you're her strategist. She comes off the stage after that. What do you do now?
Wow. This is one of those mistakes that you can't walk it back, because not only she said it twice in the same sound bite.
National security is not my thing.
Yeah, given what her brother's expertise was
known
for that. So look, I would have prepped her so that she pivoted. National security is not my strong suit. I want to talk about what South Carolina families are concerned about and gone into more domestic politics. But she looked like a deer in the headlights. Yeah. And I think that there are a few things in politics that are fatal.
As a singular. Yeah.
This is this is, if not, this is right there.
But usually, Ron, when something is fatal, it is a distillation of something that people are already worried about, right? And the concern about her is, does she have the juice? Is she experienced enough? Can she do this job? And what's
the most
answer?
dangerous thing in politics is when you confirm a pre-existing narrative, when you validate a pre-existing narrative. If Al Gore misspelled potato in 1992, people would have said he was tired. Dan Quayle misspelled potato in 1992, and people said, he doesn't have the candle power to be president or vice president. And so, I think it's look, her vote last week signaled she was Lindsey Graham's sister with Donald Trump's endorsement. She got like a third of the vote or a little over the third of the vote. That said to me that it was going to be hard for her to get over the top in a one-on-one race. And by the way, if she does lose next week, we had 2 Donald Trump endorsed candidates for the House in Florida lose tonight. We had a Donald Trump candidate for governor in Wyoming lose tonight. We had a Donald Trump endorsed, the pillow guy in Minnesota lost. He is still obviously a big force in the Republican Party, but he is not as unbeatable as he has been. And in the same way that the left is kind of finishing strong, you are seeing Trump's grip on the Republican Party demonstrably loosen here in this final round of primaries.
You know what it's like to be on a debate stage. You know what it's like to prep for something like this. You know what it's like to have a clip that you wish wasn't out there. How do you think about that moment and maybe see that differently than other people see it?
I think this is not often when you have a mistake like this. It's in a moment. You're rushed. You're tired. Something you have more of an emotion. That's not what this is. This might be just dumb. Just not very smart.
To speed on the issue.
It's a Kinsley gaffe. It's a Michael Kinsley gaffe. It is saying what you actually mean. Right? That's what he famously described as a Washington gaffe. When you say what you actually believe, and she was just
being honest.
She was just being honest.
National security is not her thing.
Right. And she doesn't know much about it. Which was honest.
The interesting part, though, is the Republican standing next to her, Ralph Norman, says nothing. Because don't interrupt the soundbite. Let her keep talking. Right. I'm willing to bet that the ad is already cut and will be in circulation tomorrow.
Well, and Matt, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed either. There's no A+ in this crowd, okay? Of those two.
He just needs a consultant who knows how to manipulate social media.
But if I'm Darlene Graham, and I have 1 week left.
Yeah, what do you do?
I'm her consultant. You said you're trying to, have her prep her more or whatever. I'm just hiding her. I don't think you can prep that fast enough.
I'd run a lot of Lindsey Graham, Darlene
and Trump endorsement. But look, there's also the in some ways, this is similar to what is happening in Iran. Trump's belief that he is infallible, that no one can stand up to him, and the only reason, that other presidents didn't get their way is because they didn't have his will, he picked someone who has no business being in the Senate. Seems like a perfectly nice person, but and he basically thought he could just push it through with no other reason.
And also, if she would have just been a caretaker.
Yes.
Nobody would see. She would be off into the sunset, a senator and very different. But when she decided, I'm going to run for this on my own, then you do get those kinds of questions.
Yes.
And that's part of, that was her decision to do that too. Right. And he backed that as well. All right, panel sticking with us. We want to put up on the screen right now some numbers from California. Those are not numbers from California. They would actually probably be worse if you were just polling California voters. But there is a special election which is happening between Aisha Wahab and Melissa Hernandez to replace Congressman Eric Swalwell in the 14th district. There are those numbers. We see how close that race is. Melissa Hernandez is with us live when we come back.
The fight returns to TNT.
Residents of California's Bay Area are voting in a special election to replace former Congressman Eric Swalwell in the 14th district. Joining me now is Melissa Hernandez, one of the Democrats competing in that race. She's currently about 1,700 votes behind, but this race is very close, and there's a lot more counting to go. Melissa Hernandez, welcome to The Story Is.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How do you read these initial numbers? Where do you think you're at in this race?
reading the initial numbers right now, we're creeping up steady, and I'm good with the numbers right now, because as you see what has happened in the last several races, in the last elections, we have closed the gap.
What do you think at the heart this election is really about? What do you see as the biggest difference between you and your opponent here?
I truly believe that the biggest difference is people know who the Melissa Hernandez is and who the Melissa Hernandez has been. And so when I knock on those doors, it's definitely me being able to engage with voters, to be able to engage with residents within this district, and they get to know who the real Melissa Hernandez is.
In terms of what's interesting about this particular race is not only are the two of you competing against each other right now, which is for the remainder of Eric Swalwell's term, the next couple months, but then the same two are competing in November for the full term next time around, which includes a different district because of redistricting in California. How do you see the difference between those two, and where do you think you potentially have more of an advantage?
Correct. You're absolutely correct. I would have more advantage on the last fourth election, and the reason is because I gained Dublin back, and so being able to be part of that district. So remember that there's a little bit of a district change. We have asked, so many folks have reached out to me saying, why I'm going out to the register of voters, I cannot vote, why can I not vote? So this race has been very confusing for so many voters, and I was walking yesterday, I was walking today, and a lot of folks did not know that they had to vote today. Many people are on vacation. They're getting the kids back to school. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. And again, this has been a race that we never thought would work out the way it has been, because of the fact that you had former Congressman Swalwell resign, and then we went on to the election and created a special election that was being created. So again, a lot of folks are not aware that they had to vote today.
So it sounds like what you're saying is, regardless of what happens tonight, you're more confident even about the fall.
Absolutely. We will keep working hard for the next 11 weeks, just when initially this race got started.
Melissa Hernandez joining us from a loud victory party, potentially. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But we appreciate you joining us tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
And of course, we would love to hear from Aisha Wahab and have extended an invitation for her as well. Hope she'll join us during the next 2.5 hours here on The Story Is. But joining me right now is Democratic Congresswoman Haley Stevens, who we saw, of course, 2 weeks ago here as she was running for the Senate from Michigan. Great to have you back. Welcome back to The Story Is.
So good to see you. And my goodness, I've seen you interview Melissa, and I've heard wonderful things about her, by the way. And man, I was right where she was, watching those votes come in, watching them get counted. It's another exciting primary night in Michigan, across this country. But for me, everything feels like Michigan.
People in Michigan are watching CNN right now so they can see you. So let's talk about what it's like in terms of an election night. You've won elections, recently lost a close election. You've had election night experiences from both. What's it like from the perspective of a candidate? Put us in your shoes.
Well, I love that we're spending the time talking about the votes and watching the votes come in. I think, we've got year-round, major breaking news, a lot of governing either trying to happen or sort of running circles around that. You got 63% of Americans, by the way, right now living paycheck to paycheck. And, we get these elections, and there's a lot of commentary around the election, but it really just comes down to the votes, right? Forget the polls, forget the money, forget the tweets, forget the commentary. We're watching people in this country exercise their right to vote, and let every vote be counted. Then we're seeing that in real time play out in states across this country right now. It's exciting, and we're certainly going to see a lot of that first Tuesday in November when every single state comes to the polls to vote in these midterm elections.
Yeah, which is going to be a lot of fun. We know Israel was
It's
an
a
important
neat thing.
Yeah, Israel was an important part of your election. AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Affairs Committee, spent big on your election. They spent big for Melissa Hernandez against Aisha Wahab. We don't know what's going to happen in that election. They spent big for Jared Moskowitz in Florida. He won. Here's some of what he said about that issue earlier tonight on CNN.
You got to remember, 25% of this district is Jewish, 20% of this district is Hispanic. People have escaped socialism. And when they hear folks from the DSA go on television and talk about, how they want to abolish the Senate, which, don't give Trump any ideas, and they want to get rid of prisons, and no borders. Most Americans hear that stuff and they say, what is going on?
What do you see as AIPAC's role in American elections? And how do you also see the divide in the Democratic Party right now?
Okay, well, look, I think Jared Moskowitz is a phenomenal congressman, and I'm really proud to serve with him. I'm thrilled he won his primary. I was looking earlier. It came in along with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I mean, look, there's a political process in this country. There's organizations that people participate in politics in. AIPAC is one of those groups. It's a organization of 6 million people. They certainly, I have a huge Jewish population in my district. I'm deeply proud to have a very treasured relationship with the Jewish community. And I think more so what you are getting at is the fact that Donald Trump, this has nothing to do with, anything other than his poor management. Tonight we got another headline about him and tariffs and Canada. Okay, we've had that herky-jerky. He's just started this war in Iran, kind of on his own volition. You now hear Republicans, I think Nancy Mace might be one of them, who's saying that the president needs to give answers. You got this open Senate seat in South Carolina, and I just heard one of the, candidates, I guess she's Lindsey Graham's sister, saying she didn't know too much about foreign policy.
National security is not her thing.
National security is not her thing. And it's kind of like, guys, what are we doing here, right? I mean, you got all this money, the federal government sucking up. You got the president closing down the Department of Education. You've got, in my state, which I can talk to very clearly, you got people being billed to death. I mean, you got utility bills that cost as much as a mortgage. It's just like and the country's being run by billionaires. So, look, maybe there's ire, because we've got super PACs in this country. I know my good friend Katie Porter's on your panel. She was a leader in terms of calling out dark money and special interests. Decades ago, they created these little PACs that get, we have a Planned Parenthood PAC, you got a Ford Motor Company PAC, they give $5,000 to campaigns each, sure. Okay, but people want change in our system. Yeah. They just want change, and what's happening right now is incredible. People are going to the polls, we're being surprised at elections, you can make a ton of assumptions, but gosh, long live the will of the American people in the ballot box. That is personal, that is private, that is sacred.
Lastly, we're out of time, but just real quickly, about your future, what's next, and does it include being a TV commentator?
You know what? I love watching you, and your crew up there, but no, I'm participating in the deliberation of the discourse of this great nation, from the halls of the House of Representatives to wherever I go next is always an honor. Godspeed. Thank you, friend.
Okay. Yeah, that sounded something one of the founding fathers said a long time ago. I loved it.
Just, poetic inspiration.
All right. Haley, Steve, it's great to see you. Thank you so much. We'll be following election nights throughout the night. We want to get you up to date on some other stories, too, including the details of an alleged college drug ring. This story is wild.